Shalom, family. Hope you're all doing well. I know many of you probably heard from other people doing this story. Donald Trump is trying to get rid of a lot of our history out of the Smithsonian. And really, technically, that's not his job. So he's really taking it upon himself to do this because the Smithsonian is independent. All right. It's an independent entity. And so, really, technically, Donald Trump has no ties to the Smithsonian. But because he's president, he's going to take it upon himself to make things his business in order to, erase our history. And remember, y'all, a lot of this is being done in hopes of getting us out into these streets protesting. So he wants the history gone, like a lot of white supremacists do, but he also is trying to entice us to get out there in the streets. He's been throwing the kitchen sink, making this attempt. And I really think when he took over DC, he was looking for us to go out there in droves and protest then. Now, some are out there, but it's still overwhelmingly white out there. And now I guess the next thing is move on to the museums. And if that doesn't work, he'll move on to something else. But the name of the game is to get us in the streets in big numbers. And I really think this action is part of that. And, how do you make the history of slavery better? It's just like Jillian Michaels when she was like, well, white people bad. Well, yeah, your forefathers were bad. Yeah, they were. That's why they enslaved people for hundreds of years because they were bad. And then she was like, it just makes everything bad. Well, what's good about slavery? It was bad. Yep, your forefathers were bad. You should teach the truth. They were bad people. And many of you are still bad people to this very day. It's the truth. You know, you just decided that shouldn't be the truth. So you want to minimize what happened to our people. And there's no minimizing slavery. And I don't care what y'all remove from a museum, what you remove from a classroom or a library, slavery was still horrific. It's never going to change the fact that it was horrific. And I don't know why y'all think removing stuff removes your crime. No, that crime is here to stay. Okay? I don't care what you take away, that crime is here to stay. You know, and I know how some of y'all talk. Well, it wasn't a crime at the time. No, in the eyes of the Most High, it was a crime. It was a crime. Just because you freely did something, it does not mean it was not a crime. Lynching somebody is a crime. Just because you wrote your little dummy laws to exclude our deaths as anything that counts, that doesn't mean in the eyes of the Heavenly Father, that mess was a crime. And it's still a crime. They some of them act like it's not a crime unless they label it a crime. Wrong. Wrong. So anyway, y'all, let's get into this story. So We all know what Donald Trump is doing. Nobody should be shocked. Donald Trump is a racist. He's been displaying this all throughout his existence, and he's going to continue to do these things. I think he is deeply bothered at the fact that we have been unaffected by all of his attacks on us. And I think that is deeply bothering him, along with MAGA. It is deeply bothering them that they can't get that rise they're looking for out of us. So, I mean, if you want to remove things from the Smithsonian, just also remember when you remove things, you're also removing the opportunity of people going there. You're going to lose people. People ain't going to go there anymore. You know, I don't care how hard you try. Nobody is going to go to a damn museum to look at all white history. You know how boring that shit would be? You might as well just go ahead and close down the Smithsonian. Close it down. Seriously. If that's what you're going to turn it into, you just close it down because nobody's going to go and look at that. They said 1,000,000 people a year goes to the Smithsonian. I promise you, if you start erasing our history up in there, you won't get that 1,000,000 anymore. You're not gonna get the 1,000,000 coming anymore. Alright, let me share my screen so that we can get started. Please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Thank you.
Donald Trump is actively trying to purge museums of Black history and whitewash America's history by calling our museums too woke.
Well, we want the museums to treat our country fairly. We want the museums to talk about the history of our country in a fair manner, not in a woke manner or in a racist manner, which is what many of them, not all of them, but many of them are doing. Our museums have an obligation to represent what happened in our country over the years, good and bad, but what happened over the years in an accurate way.
Black American history is barely taught in America as it stands now. There's no universal curriculum in this country to explain the history of what it means to be Black in America and our Black experience.
Y'all hold on for a moment. I'm gonna download it again. All right, y'all. So while that's downloading, I don't know what happened, but we're gonna do it again. We're gonna do it again. There is sound, so you need to go out and come back in. Blocking your comments. Well, yeah, I mean, these people are butt sore, so what do you expect? Okay. It's almost done. All right. Hi, Loretta. Mhm. All right, here we go. All right, y'all. All right, so it's finished downloading. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go out and then I'm going to come back in. I'll be right back. All right. Now, I'm listening to myself on another device. So I hear sound. Hopefully, you hear sound too. I do hear it. I always do that. If I can hear myself on my other devices, I know the sound is fine. All right. Let me share my screen again. All right. Let's do this again. Give me a one if you can see my screen. Okay.
Donald Trump is actively trying to purge museums of Black history and whitewash America's history by calling our museums too woke.
Well, we want the museums to treat our country fairly. We want the museums to talk about the history of our country in a fair manner, not in a woke manner or in a racist manner, which is what many of them, not all of them, but many of them are doing. Our museums have an obligation to represent what happened in our country over the years, good and bad, but what happened over the years in an accurate way.
Black American history is barely taught in America as it stands now. There's no universal curriculum in this country to explain the history of what it means to be Black in America and our Black experience. We learn our history from our parents, our grandparents, our elders, and our community, and that's how we've always learned our history. An abridged version of what most people in this country learn is that slavery was bad. Slaves were brought from Africa. They worked on plantations, mainly cotton and tobacco. Lincoln ended slavery, then cut to Martin Luther King and civil rights, and then we've been free. But that is not how history works, right? Our history is omitted from curriculum and omitted from the mainstream society, because that would have to mean that America would admit its portion in systematically oppressing us today. Slavery lasted for 246 years, from 1619 until 1865. And then for 89 years after 1865, we lived under one of the worst apartheid systems in the modern world, where Jim Crow run rampant. In 1954, we got the civil rights era starting, and when we had our leaders fight for our rights to vote, fight for our rights to have fair and free housing. But we were still, the systems in place were already unilaterally spread throughout this country, meaning Black people couldn't do many things. And we had to fight for the next 30 to 40, 50 years, even today, to get access to certain things. But because this isn't taught, and the history and the gruesomeness of that slavery, where we have men raping women at their beck and call, and then stealing those babies from those mothers and then raping them again and getting them pregnant. Black people were sent to breeding farms, mainly in Virginia, to breed with each other, because the strongest slave would breed another strong slave, whether they were family or not. That's where the term motherfucker comes from. The more you know. Lynching people, how people bringing their babies to come watch lynchings, antagonizing Black people, terrorizing Black people, eating Black people. There's so many things that happen in America with white people against Black people. And the fact that they're trying to spin this new era of, well, not everybody owned a slave, white people aren't evil, it's always white people bad, Black people good. And that's not the case. The case is, if we don't teach our history the correct way, why would anyone listen to my experience as a Black person? And it's already being challenged. It's every time I put up a video about the Black experience or Black history, people can throw out racist comments very quickly to me. And I'm like, why do you think it's so easy for you to be racist when my experience is exhausting? It is exhausting being Black and have to stand 10 toes down for my history and my culture. Because if it's not us to teach it, they'll wipe it from the history books here. And that's what they're trying to do.
Hey guys, August 19th, 2025. So this motherfucker just said the quiet part out loud. He always says it out loud, but he said it really loud this time. So he just posted this. The museums throughout Washington, but all over the country, are essentially the last remaining segment of woke. The Smithsonian is out of control, where everything discussed is how horrible our country is, how bad slavery was. What? Let's stop right there for a second. And first of all, I was working in my garden because I'm growing my own food, because who knows where this is headed, right? So excuse this attire, but I had to jump on here really quickly. So we are to a point now where this motherfucker is literally saying how bad slavery was. Like it's a bad, like it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad, right? I've seen and I've heard the comments that he's made, like, oh, well, people learn to fucking trade. No, this is disgusting. The fact that this motherfucker is the president should be disturbing to everybody in the country. I don't know how, after everything we've learned in history, right? I don't know how we can be at a place where half of this, or a little less than half of this country, can stand by this and stand by this person and this monster. The things that happened during slavery, absolutely horrific. The women, we all should, we all know. Some of you might want to act like you don't fucking know. Nothing about slavery was not fucking just absolutely disgusting and horrific, and torturous. So from this point forward, if you support this motherfucker, I don't care. I've already cut off everybody I know that does support this motherfucker. It's about humanity. It's about decency. It's about human beings. This is not about right or left. This isn't about policy. This is about evil. And if you continue, if I don't even care at this point, you support him, you're a fucking evil scumbag.
In a recent Truth Social post, Donald Trump is attacking museums, saying they're talking too negatively about America and how slavery is bad. Take a look at this. He says the museums throughout Washington, but all over the country, are essentially the last remaining segment of woke. The Smithsonian is out of control, where everything discussed is how horrible our country is, how bad slavery was, and how unaccomplished the downtrodden have been. Nothing about success, nothing about brightness, nothing about future. We are not going to allow this to happen. And I have instructed my attorneys to go through the museums and start the exact same process they have been doing with colleges and universities where tremendous progress has been made. This country can't be woke because woke is broke. We have the hottest country in the world, and we want people to talk about it, including our museums. He's not upset about misinformation or the misrepresentation of history. He is upset that they're teaching history how it happened. I guess now the truth, historical events, are woke, according to Donald Trump. This is the authoritarian playbook 101. Donald Trump couldn't be following it more accurately if he tried. First you attack schools, then universities, now museums.
I'm so sick of that big hog head, pig knuckle, big neck, overweight, want to be fine and have 15, 16 surgeries, still sloppy as a bag of wet mashed potatoes. I'm going to get her. I'm going to get her.
Donald Trump just basically said that museums in the United States are out of control and woke because there's exhibits within these museums about slavery. He wrote, "The Smithsonian is out of control, where everything discussed is how horrible our country is, how bad slavery was, ... Either Donald Trump has never been to a museum in his life, which probably is true, or he's grossly exaggerating what he did see in these museums. Teaching Americans, especially children, about where we screwed up, like with slavery, is actually a good thing because it prevents us from following in those footsteps again. Trying to erase the history that makes us look bad is really something that dictators of the past have done time and time again. So if you want to actually teach our children and not indoctrinate them, then I would say let's not touch these museums. Do you agree?
Friends, we have some extreme breaking news. Donald Trump has a new target, and it's the museums. Apparently, Donald Trump told his attorneys to start reviewing museum exhibits because, get this, they talk too much about how bad slavery was. Yeah, imagine walking through the Museum of African American History, and Trump's like, you know what this place needs? Less slavery and more success stories. Maybe a food court named after me. Trump's literally walking around thinking, slavery, overrated. What about Trump steaks? What about the bright, shiny future? Nobody talks about how successful I am. So sad. So now instead of historians, we got Trump's lawyers fact-checking the Smithsonian. Next thing you know, the dinosaur exhibit's going to claim the T-Rex went extinct because they voted for Hillary. Look, Trump, if you're trying to rewrite history so it looks more flattering and less distasteful, maybe the museum you really need is a wax museum.
Breaking news, guys. Donald Trump says that he wants to change the museums in Washington, specifically the Smithsonian Museum, because he says that it doesn't portray slavery in a positive light. Are you serious? Now, maybe I got him wrong, so I'm going to read exactly what he says. The museums throughout Washington, but all over the country, are essentially the last remaining segment of wealth. The Smithsonian Museum is out of control, where everything discusses how horrible our country is, how bad slavery was, how unaccomplished the downtrodden have been. Nothing about success, nothing about brightness, nothing about the future. We are not going to allow this to happen. I have instructed my attorneys to go through the museums and start the exact same process that have been done with the colleges and universities, where tremendous progress has been made. This country cannot be woke because woke is broke. We have the hottest country in the world. We want people to talk about it, including our museums. Now, I'm sorry, maybe I missed the chapter about how positive slavery was. I forgot how positive it was to be great. I forgot how positive it was for our families to be torn apart. I forgot how positive it was not to vote. I forgot how positive it was to be treated as 3/5 of a motherfucking person. I forgot how positive it was to not even truly be free, because guess what? When the southern states seceded from the Union, literally what Abraham Lincoln did served no motherfucking purpose, because guess what? The slaves weren't in the Union. They were in the South. Please tell me, what part about slavery did I motherfucking miss? Y'all put in the comments, because obviously, me, the black person, me, the person who has a family that only 2 generations removed, 3 generations removed from slavery. My grandmama was a sharecropper in South Carolina. Her mom, sharecropper, South Carolina, her father hanged downtown. She passes that theater every single day. Please tell me, what did I miss about slavery that was so fucking positive? Because obviously, I don't know. Y'all tell me what y'all think about it in the comments, like I said, and also don't forget, follow me because these motherfuckers are crazy and I'm trying to keep y'all informed. Bye.
Trump is instructing his attorneys to go through the museums because they're focusing too much on how bad slavery was. This is incredibly serious, and I need you to understand why. You can pause to read this entire thing, but he goes on to say how museums like the Smithsonian are out of control, and everything that's discussed is how horrible our country is and how bad slavery was. I'm surprised he knows what the words unaccomplished and downtrodden are, but we can move on from that. You might be asking, okay, what's so bad about focusing on accomplishments and achievements? And I agree, we should show those, but we should show the full picture. And first of all, history should never be dictated by the leader of any country. Full stop, period, end of story. Number two, his attorneys are doing this. This is not being vetted by archivists, historians, professors of any kind. This is being done by attorneys working at the behest of the orange one. So of course they're going to do his bidding to the letter. And this will not stop at the Smithsonian. It's only starting there. And number three, people do not like it when parallels are made with a certain regime in the 1930s in Germany, but there is a very valid comparison here. The German government in the 1930s had a department called the Ahnenerbe. And what that department did was vet the history of that country, vet what was shown in museums to prop up the regime, to make their country look good, to only show the good parts of history. How do I know this? My graduate thesis was focused on the Ahnenerbe's work, manipulating history and archaeology to warp the minds of the German people and prop up that horrid regime. And that is essentially what you could argue the Tangerine Tyrant wants to do here. And he's going to start with the Smithsonian by taking away all negative aspects, starting with slavery. I'm sure he's going to go after the internment camps of Japanese Americans during World War II. I'm pretty sure we're not going to see a whole heck of a lot about that. And that impeachment exhibit, yeah, he's not going back in there. Not if his attorneys have any say about that, even though he is the only president to be impeached twice. I mean, that's a valid historical fact. This should disturb everyone. This is not a distraction, okay? This is serious because it is going to start there and it's going to basically spiderweb into every other museum, every classroom, every curriculum. This is just the beginning, and this should concern everyone.
Trump is escalating attacks on the Smithsonian. He's saying that there's too much emphasis and focus on how bad slavery was. Yeah, he said that. Source Focus is Truth Social. Let me know what you think about this in the comments.
President Trump seeking to abuse government power to shape culture and censor free speech. The White House says it will do a review of Smithsonian museum exhibits so that they align with Trump's vision. They're admitting partisan abuse of a hallowed institution that is supposed to provide accurate history, beautiful art, and truth, but not switch every 4 years based on politics.
What he's doing is objectively bad for the world. It's objectively bad for our democracy, and it should be called as such. There should not be false equivalence with anything that Donald Trump does because he doesn't play by the rules. He's not fair. Look what he's trying to do. We mentioned with the arts. Look what he's trying to do around the country. He's trying to steal elections right now.
Yeah, they're trying to rewrite the rules.
People are pretending as if this is something that's normal, and they're treating it like, oh, well, let's have a conversation about this. No, what he's doing is bad. This should not be happening. He should not be calling governors to try to, because he's afraid of losing the midterms, to try to steer elections in a certain direction.
I generally don't know why people are following up Donald Trump with idiocracy. He's talking about, oh my God, the Smithsonian Museum. He's mainly focused on the National African American Museum, talking about, oh, they talk about slavery bad, slavery bad. Only one level of that museum speaks on slavery, right? And it gets to the nitty gritty. You got to take your time to look through it, right? Even tell you how like the African, like how some African tribes participated in the slave trade, how some African tribes fought against it. You got some people like Queen Mbonde's being recognized and how she, you know, fought the Portuguese. But I'm sorry, but America wasn't this holy land when it came to the slavery. I'm sorry. Like chattel slavery was a bitch. It was evil. It was demonic, literally. Trying to erase our history when y'all won't even erase the triple K. Good luck, right? Like, and the whole museum has like 5 levels from slavery, from when we got here to chattel slavery, how that switched through the Reconstruction, civil rights era. You get to see Emmett Till original original's casket. You can't take pictures though. And then as you get to the top, the whole museum is based on how we got from the bottom and came up with so many accomplishments. Like literally the top is talking about all our accomplishments and how we got through. They even have a Ku Klux Klan section in the museum. Like,
all right, well, breaking fucking news. Donald Trump's assault on actual American history that they're trying to bury because it attacks their white pride continues. Trump escalates attacks against the Smithsonian Museum, saying there's too much focus on how bad slavery was. President Donald J. Trump escalated his campaign to purge cultural institutions of materials that conflict with his political directive on Tuesday, alleging museums were too focused on highlighting the negative aspects of American history, including how bad slavery was. In a true social post, Trump directed his attorneys to conduct a review of the museums, compare the effort to his crackdown on universities across the country. The Smithsonian is out of control, where everything discusses how horrible the country is, how bad slavery was, and how unaccomplished the downtrodden have been. Nothing about the success, nothing about the brightness, nothing about the future, Trump wrote. Trump comments comes days after the White House announced that unprecedented sweeping review of the Smithsonian Institution, which runs the nation's major public museums. The initiative of a trio of top Trump aides wrote in a letter to the Smithsonian Institution's Secretary Lonnie Bunch III last week, aims to ensure enlightenment with the president's directive to celebrate American exceptionalism, remove divisive and partisan narratives, and restore confidence in our shared cultural institutions. When y'all hitting the streets? Time, date, location, I'll be there. I gotta set it up, I'll set it up. But welcome to the Fourth Reich.
So, I don't understand why we can't just get like one day without anything happening. No breaking news from poor Aaron Parnas. That's a really low plane. But anyway, so Trump is getting his attorneys to look at the Smithsonian and other museums because he said we talk about slavery too much in them and how bad slavery was, and the museums are woke. I'm sorry, what? We talk about how slavery was so bad all the time. Yeah. Because it was. I just want to crash out right now. They literally skinned human beings alive. They burned people alive. They raped. And they murdered their slaves. And I'm not even mentioning the bad stuff. Fuck you, Trump. He's trying to rewrite history now, which we knew he was going to do, by the way. But I can still crash out about it because I'm fucking pissed. I guess we're all going to have to, on this app before it shuts us down, let's all talk about how bad slavery was, shall we? Let's do it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Trump Has Lost His Marbles. Trump woke up today and thought that he would distract people from the Epstein files by attacking the museums in Washington, D.C. and across the country. He posted this on his Truth Social, basically stating that the museums throughout Washington and all over the country are the last remaining segment of woke. The Smithsonian is out of control, where everything discussed is how horrible our country is and how bad slavery was, and how unaccomplished the downtrodden have been. Nothing about success, nothing about brightness, nothing about the future. He then goes on to state that he will have his lawyers essentially do what they're doing to the colleges, which means he'll be suing them probably. And because this country cannot be woke, because woke is broke. We have the hottest country in the world, and we want people to talk about it, including museums. Now, Trump, I don't know if anyone's told you this, but Smithsonian is not a person. It is a group of museums. And museums are not human either. Just saying. However, I'm sure they didn't teach facts at Trump University, but let's go over what a museum is. It is a building in which objects of historical, scientific, artistic, or cultural interests are stored and exhibited. So telling a museum, which is supposed to display history and information, to not share that we have history of slavery in our country seems a little odd. Now, when the Smithsonian was created, it was created for the increase and diffusion of knowledge. It played a role in shaping American national identity by showcasing American history, innovation, and natural resources. You see, Trump, by acknowledging that there was slavery, we were able to abolish it. I know you want to bring it back, but you can't erase our history. Nonetheless, to counter your statement, the Smithsonian shows a ton of variety of achievements that the United States has accomplished, such as this: landing on the moon, the invention of aircraft innovations and technology, inventions and discoveries related to science and space, the invention of motorized machinery, and futuristic architecture. Now, Trumpy, I don't know what perversions you want to be displayed inside the museums to make us show that we are the hottest country in the world, but as you can see, the Smithsonian is doing fine. It is the world's largest museum, education, and research complex, and it gets millions of visitors every single year. So, Trump, while the one thing in your entire statement that actually had content was related to slavery, this would just indicate you just want to get rid of anything that shows that there was slavery in the United States, because you're trying to cover up the fact that you're looking to bring it back. Well, when you do find all of your marbles, be sure to get up slowly. We would hate for you to throw your back out.
We want the museums to talk about the history of our country in a fair manner, not in a woke manner or in a racist manner, which is what many of them, not all of them, but many of them are doing. Our museums have an obligation to represent what happened in our country over the years, good and bad, but what happened over the years in an accurate way.
The idea that the Smithsonian, which was created as an independent entity, should reflect any administration's vision of history and not the vision of the historians and the researchers and the other people who devote their lives to studying these things is more than problematic, I would say. It's not a shock because we can see what's happening in other arenas, but it is something that's a departure from what should be expected, what is right, actually.
I don't know. I guess Donald Trump think, they can escape from the crime if they erase stuff from the history and stop teaching it in the schools and get it out of the libraries and burn the books. This absolves you from what happened. It will never absolve you from anything. You are still going to be judged on how your group did. And if slavery is included, it is what it is. You can't go 400 plus years later and decide, well, I don't like that part of the history, so let's get rid of it. It still happened. It still happened on this soil. And nothing is just trying to satisfy his rich donors. And they're putting him up to this and all that garbage in Project 2025. And, this is the stuff they want. So Trump is, he's a puppet and he's going to do whatever they request. And if the request is to get rid of the slavery and the museums, then he's going to do that. But technically, like I said, the Smithsonian is independent. It's not connected to a political party. So this act that he's doing, he's taken it upon himself to do. But yeah, I mean, Trump, when I look at your reaction to slavery, it tells me right there, you are a person with no remorse, along with a lot of your people. This just shows a lack of remorse. You will go for erasing the history over acknowledging the history, or making good on the history by doing reparations. So, I mean, you see where Donald Trump's mind is. He's not for no kind of reconciliation or atoning for the sins that have been committed. And y'all, we're not that far off from our Day of Atonement. That's really close now that we're approaching the end of the month. I look forward to that every single year. I love our Day of Atonement. I really do. And you can see there is no atoning in Donald Trump's heart at all. Now you can understand why the Most High is going to come in here the way that he prophesied in the Bible. Now, that is real justice right there. But see, I don't look for humanity in these folks. I don't. I think if you're looking for that, you're never going to find it. I don't look for the humanity in them. Mm-mm. I remember the day I was in church and there was a white Jesus. But you know what was weird? The church had a white Jesus, but they had a stained glass black Jesus. Very contradictory. So anyway, I looked at my mom. I said, how come white people don't act like Jesus? I did. You prop up this Jesus is good, Jesus is good, and none of y'all act like a Jesus. You know? No, that's why I was like, no, I don't look for the humanity in them. Maybe some other people do. I don't. I would never look at Donald Trump and try to locate the humanity that's there because I know I'm never going to find it. Well, that's why this system is crumbling and it's going to continue to crumble. In fact, Donald Trump is going to send it into a full acceleration going down. That's what he's going to do. All he's going to do is make your judgment come faster. But take anything you want out of the museum, Donald Trump. You can accomplish that because you are the president. And those lawyers, they're just going to go along with whatever you want because they don't have a backbone. They won't stand up to you. So they're just going to go through the museum and just get rid of, oh, this should go, because they're trying to please your fat lard orange ass. That's what they're trying to do. But they're actually marking and condemning themselves by going through that museum and doing what they're doing. They are literally condemning themselves. So if they want to do your bidding and be just as condemned as you are, I say let them do it, y'all. Let them do it. But one thing we should never do is take to the streets. Now, what that brother said, I do not agree with him. Don't take to the streets. At the end of the day, y'all, those are objects in a museum. Those are not things you should be glorifying at all. So if he wants to remove it, let him have at it. You stay right at home. Stay at home. Stay out of these streets. Plain and simple. Stay out of the streets. How you doing, Cap? Thank you. Don't let him lure you to the streets because that's what it's all about at the end of the day. Antithesis, thank you for your super chat. Alchia supporting. White fragility on full display. Yes, absolutely. It sure is. And Donald Trump is the embodiment of white fragility, for real. James Mitchell, thank you for your super sticker. Ballet Dancer, New Jersey, thank you for your super sticker. And Cap, Thank you for your super chat. Them folks know that their history is full of inhumanity. Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump wants some good stuff. That to me, that's fake. So America talking about it's going to be seen in a bad light. America has been seen in a bad light for hundreds of years. Ain't no way in hell you're going to be able to turn it around now. I mean, and look at you alone, Donald Trump. Other world leaders mock you, laugh at you, and they don't even, because of you, nobody respects America. Okay? You can't even get your image right to the entire world. Most of the world leaders don't even want to deal with Donald Trump. They can't stand Donald Trump. All right. He done ran off all the allies. The only one that runs to him, well, Putin pretty much mocks him and laughs at him. And what, Netanyahu, that's your ally? Well, hell, that you don't have no allies. You don't have none. You have no allies. And y'all, I got to go back and look at the news. I think America done bombed Iran again. So when I get done with this, I got to go and do some research. I think they sent the B-2 bombers back over there and they did some more bombing. So I will, if I do find it, which I think I will let you know for certain if they did. So y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. And as far as I'm concerned, it is up to us to be teaching the young our history. It doesn't matter what these people remove from a library, a school, or a museum. We know what our history is, and we are the ones that will pass it on. We don't need the likes of Donald Trump, MAGA, or any of these folks out here to do a damn thing for us. We can do it for ourselves. Okay? We can do these things for ourselves. All right, y'all. So I will see you. I have another live stream coming at 2:45, and I hope to see you there. Shalom, family.